Hey everyone, today we're diving into the extraordinary life of Marvel's Black Knight. This isn't just a superhero story, it's a journey from the mystical corridors of Camelot to modern-day scientific intrigue. And later in the video, I'll also break down how Marvel Snap translates his abilities from the comics into gameplay. Now, let's jump in. Our story begins with a scientist swept into a world of romantic adventure and mysticism. But this isn't your everyday scientist. This is Dane Whitman, the modern-day Black Knight. He is the heir to a legacy stretching back to the legendary kingdom of Camelot in 6th century Britain. Camelot was protected by King Arthur Pendragon's Knights of the Round Table, but there was also Merlin, Arthur's court magician, who empowered more exotic champions. One of the earliest champions was the Black Knight, actually an empty suit of armor enchanted by Merlin to function as a mighty warrior. He was used to humble the arrogant Sir Mogard. Yet, whether Merlin ever used this hollow knight again is unknown. Therefore, the mystery deepens right from the start. Merlin's next Black Knight was a mortal man, Sir Percy of Scandia. But life in Camelot wasn't a fairy tale. Threats loomed from every corner. Sir Percy faced not only his corrupt cousin, Sir Mordred, but also the cunning sorceress Morgan Le Fay. Merlin warned that Camelot faced many threats, but also that Percy's destiny was foretold by Gwyn. Therefore, when Merlin asked Percy to become Arthur's secret weapon, Percy accepted his dual role with determination. Percy was to pose as a cowardly fop within Arthur's court, concealing his true prowess. Yet when danger called, he donned his armor, mask, and helmet to defend Camelot as the anonymous Black Knight. But his journey did not stop there. Merlin, realizing that his champion needed a mightier weapon, led Percy to the mystical subterranean pool of blood. There, Percy encountered the Starstone, a glowing ebony meteorite that had fallen to Earth years earlier. Merlin explained that the Starstone's radiance would render any weapon fashioned from it invincible. Therefore, he directed Percy in carving fragments off the Starstone and crafting 4 dark objects: a sword, a staff, a shield, and a chalice. Cooling these newly forged items with sacred blood drawn from the pool, Merlin told Percy he could select only one. But the choice wasn't arbitrary. Choosing the correct one might prevent the fall of Camelot. Favoring the object most suited to a knight, Percy chose the Ebony Blade. The Ebony Blade was no ordinary weapon. It was an indestructible, enchanted sword that cuts through any substance. But it wasn't just a tool for battle. It could deflect, disrupt, absorb, or penetrate energy fields and beams, including mystical energies. However, long-term use of the blade can have negative mental or physical effects. In fact, if used to shed blood or kill, the blade usually compels its user to seek more bloodshed. Therefore, while it made its wielder nearly invincible, it also carried a terrible curse. In modern times, a twist of fate brought the family legacy into new light. Scientist and spy Nathan Garrett visited his ancestral home, Garrett Castle, formerly Castle Scandia. There, he encountered the spirit of his ancestor, Sir Percy, who offered him the chance to assume the Black Knight's mantle. But Nathan's ambition was matched by his flaws. He was proven unworthy when he could not draw the ebony blade from its scabbard. Embittered by his failure, Nathan later turned to crime. He reinvented himself as an armored supercriminal, using medieval-inspired high-tech weapons and riding a genetically engineered winged horse. But his criminal life had a fatal end when he took a deadly fall from his flying steed during a battle with Iron Man. In his dying moments, Nathan summoned his nephew, Dane Whitman, and urged him to redeem the Black Knight legacy by using it in the service of justice. Dane Whitman accepted his uncle's wishes with a heavy heart. He set out to redeem the Black Knight guise by fighting crime. But first, he embraced his own journey to Garrett Castle. There, he encountered the spirit of Sir Percy again. Unlike his corrupt uncle, Dane proved his worth by successfully drawing the ebony blade from its scabbard. Therefore, the new Black Knight was born, wielding the mystical sword as his weapon of justice. Dane's first mission as the new Black Knight was a dramatic one. He went to alert the Avengers that Magneto had captured two of their own. But confusion reigned. The Avengers mistook him for his uncle. Therefore, an unexpected battle ensued between allies. Soon after, however, the Black Knight infiltrated Ultron's new Masters of Evil, aiding the Avengers in their fight. This earned him the cautious respect of his new teammates. But despite his newfound alliance, Dane preferred to remain at Garrett Castle in England, serving as a reservist. Just when you think the story can't twist any further, fate intervenes once again. Months later, the Avengers' enemy, the Enchantress, turned the Black Knight to stone. Strangely, Whitman's spirit left its stone body and traveled back in time to take possession of the body of his 12th century ancestor, Sir Eobar Garrington, the Black Knight, who fought alongside King Richard the Lionhearted in the Crusades. The demands of warfare during the Crusades forced Whitman to slay scores of adversaries. But the horrors of killing took a heavy toll on his peace of mind. Worse, it strengthened the curse of the Ebony Blade, forcing him to remain in the 12th century to continue bloodshed in Richard's name. After his crusade ended, the knight allied with Amergin, a god from the mystical realm of Avalon, and an ancestor of Dr. Druid. Together, they fought the Fomor, but the conflict opened a portal between Earth and Avalon. The Avengers themselves journeyed back in time to help seal this dangerous portal. But in the process, Sir Eobar Garrington's body was destroyed. Therefore, Whitman's spirit risked being left as nothing more than a disembodied echo, if not for Emergin, who cast a spell across the centuries. He restored Whitman's spirit to its original body, transforming it from stone back to flesh, and magically transported a new winged steed, Valinor, and the Ebony Blade to the 20th century. Yet, the story wasn't over. Whitman's outward appearance returned to normal, but the Ebony Blade's blood curse still loomed over his mind. Therefore, the sorcerer Dr. Strange intervened to save him. At Strange's bidding, Whitman plunged the blade into Sir Percy's mystical brazier of truth, shattering it and purging the blade of the taint of spilled blood. Since Garrett Castle had been purchased in Whitman's absence by Dr. Strange's friend Victoria Bentley, Dane returned to America and became an active member of the East Coast Avengers. But innovation never rests. Dane eventually wielded a laser sword of his own invention. This new weapon contained neural inhibitors that could stun an opponent without killing him. However, the Ebony Blade's legacy was far from forgotten. It later fell into the hands of Sean Dolan, transforming him into a new, evil version of the Black Knight, known as the Blood Wraith. Now, you all know his snap ability, right? After you discard a card, you add the Ebony Blade to your hand with that card's power. Plus, the blade can't be destroyed. Now, that discard mechanic was chosen because, let's face it, Black Knight wields a sword. That's how Marvel Snap represents most, if not every, swordsman. But here's where it gets even more interesting. In the comics, the Ebony Blade is a cursed weapon that grows stronger through bloodshed and sacrifice. The blade's power is deeply tied to the violence of battle, where every drop of spilled blood adds to its might. So, imagine if we took that lore and twisted the ability a bit further. What if, instead of discarding, Black Knight's power was tied to the destruction of your opponent's cards? Here's an alternative ability that might resonate even more with his comic book roots. After one of your opponent's cards is destroyed, gain the Ebony Blade with that card's power. Ebony Blade can't be destroyed. When an opponent's card is destroyed, it's like the chaos and bloodshed of battle are channeled directly into the Ebony Blade, powering it up with the fallen card's strength. By linking its strength to the destruction of an opponent's card, you capture that raw, violent energy that the blade embodies. It's a nod to the cursed nature of the weapon, where every act of destruction fuels its legendary might. So while Marvel Snap's current discard mechanic is thematically tied to Black Knight's sword-wielding persona, this alternative ability adds an extra layer of depth. It mirrors the way the Ebony Blade in the comics is an instrument of both justice and bloodshed, indestructible and ever-growing in power as a result of the battles fought. Thank you for taking this epic journey with me. Who do you want me to cover next? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, keep your heart brave and your spirit curious.